She wanted late June for the wedding. Said the light made everyone look golden. That was such a Brian-y thing to say. Always thinking about how the world looked, not just how it felt. A mood, a picture, a frame before a heartbeat. She could make anything. Sound like summer if she wanted to. We were sitting on a splintering bench outside Riverside Park. I was still in scrubs, sweat dried, brain half running on cafeteria coffee. Another 30-hour shift behind me. Another night learning how to hold a scalpel like it was a promise and not a sentence. She sat next to me, legs crossed, hair pinned back in that messy way that somehow looked intentional. She had her phone open, scrolling through a Pinterest board like it was scripture. Linen suits, barefoot dancing. Jazz at dusk, she said. The whole thing should feel light, I remember thinking. I hadn't felt light in months, but she had that orbit. She pulled brightness out of people like she was born to do it. And I loved her for that. Loved her in a way that felt steady. Like a house foundation. Quiet, solid, mine, I said. I'd have been fine with a courthouse wedding. Paperwork, a picture in front of the fountain. Dinner, someplace that didn't require reservations. Something simple. She rolled her eyes, laughed soft, and kissed my jaw. You'll thank me when the pictures come in, she said. She always spoke in pictures. There was a watch in a storefront window on 5th that she loved. Bronze dial, minimalist, just over $1,900. I saw her looking at it once and I told myself maybe I'd get it for her someday. When residency stopped chewing every hour of my life. When sleep became negotiable instead of foreign. That night, I texted my mom a photo of the ring. Sapphire, clean but modest. The way love feels when you're building it. Brick by brick instead of buying it in one grand gesture, Mom replied. With 3 heart emojis and proud of you. Baby. I sat there, in that moment, feeling like the world was finally lining up in a way that made sense. Like all the years of sacrifice were beginning to mean something. If you had asked me what could go wrong that night, I would have said traffic, maybe. Weather, not people, not trust, not the person. I'd grown up looking up to not my brother, 'cause back then I still believed love was something you safeguarded. With effort and sincerity. I didn't understand yet that some people love differently. Some love in ways that need an audience, and some people don't love at all unless someone is watching. My brother. Adrian never entered a room. He arrived, like a headline, like a curated moment. He was 33, 5 years older, and had the kind of confidence that didn't look practiced, even though it absolutely was. He ran a boutique downtown that sold designer watches, sculptural lamps, imported leather, the kind of things that don't have function, just statement. He had a talent for making people feel like they'd stumbled into a world they didn't know they desperately wanted to belong. To his world, when he texted that Friday, inviting us to dinner at his loft, I didn't think twice. He was my brother. He'd been at my graduation. I'd been at his. We'd fought over the front seat growing up and laughed about it years later. I thought some lines couldn't be crossed because they were family lines, fixed, understood, but I was naive in ways I didn't yet know how to measure. We got to his building just past 8. Old bakery underneath. Exposed brick. Windows that wanted to be seen. Adrian opened the door barefoot, holding 2 wine glasses like props in a photograph. He didn't look at me first. He went straight to her. Look at you, he said, stepping back to take her in. That jacket? Perfect. Come in, like she was a canvas he'd commissioned. She laughed. It was a small sound, but it was different than the laugh she used with me. Little brighter, sharper at the edges, the kind of laugh someone uses when they want to impress. Followed them in, still in my work shoes, collar tight. His loft was one of those places meant to be photographed, not lived in. Industrial ceilings, centered art pieces, furniture that looked expensive but not comfortable. The place projected. Taste the way some people project. Warmth. Dinner was plated already. Hanger steak. Roasted carrots. 2 sauces. A bottle of Bordeaux he claimed he got at cost. He always said at cost, like generosity was part of the performance. Bree lit up when he asked about her new job designing floor plans for the exhibit space. She leaned in. He leaned back. He spoke about gallery owners, curators, private dinners in Soho. He spoke her language. Ambition dressed up as aesthetic lifestyle. Tried to jump in once. Told a story. About a patient who brought crossword puzzles into pre-op to calm himself. Real. Left quiet life, Adrian. Cut over it with something louder. A gallery. Opening next Thursday. Invite. Only. Perfect crowd. Her eyes sparked, like someone had just lifted a curtain and shown her a world she didn't know she was allowed to walk into. Walking home later, she kept talking about it. The venue, the light, the music. See, she said, smiling. Your brother gets it. She meant it as a compliment, but it lodged somewhere, deeper, somewhere I didn't want to name, yet somewhere that felt like a warning, because I could feel the shift starting. Not dramatic, not sudden, just a slow tilting of gravity, like the floor was beginning to slope, and I didn't notice until I was already leaning. Before I continue, tell, from which place are you watching this story right now? Please subscribe and like the video for motivation. The weeks that followed didn't break anything outright. No slammed doors, no accusations, no evidence anyone could circle in red, just drift. It started with invitations. At first, they came to both of us, wine spritzer tastings, studio walkthroughs, with artists who had complicated haircuts and explained their own work as if it were prophecy. Silent auctions filled with people who didn't say flavor. They said notes. Went when I could, when sleep wasn't swallowing me whole. But gradually, subtly, the invites started going to her, not us, her. Because I was always in surgery, always on call, always holding someone else's life in my hands when the people in Adrian's world were sipping expensive air and discussing light angles on gallery walls. And she would come home, glowing, not drunken, not guilty, glowing, full of stories. The rooftop where the city lights looked like sequins. The chef who reduced something into something with a French name she couldn't pronounce. The collector who told her she had an eye for spaces. She'd sit on the counter while I reheated leftovers and tell me everything like she was sharing. Not shifting, but there were changes, small ones. She started saying, we should ask Adrian about the napkins. We should have Adrian look at the venue contract. We should see what Adrian thinks about your suit, like I wasn't the groom, like the wedding was something being designed around me. Not for me. One Tuesday after a double shift, I found a receipt in her bag, 2 seats at a chef's table downtown, 4 courses, wine pairing, Tuesday, when I'd been at the hospital, when I'd texted her, good night between rounds, and she replied with a heart emoji. I asked her about it. She laughed. A client thing. Boring, she said. Just food, just the kind of place we used to. Promise we'd save up for someday. Just the kind of night she used to tell me she dreamed about. I nodded. Because I was tired. Because I didn't want to fight the person I loved. Because part of me believed this was temporary. She leaned over and kissed me like reassurance. Soft. Familiar. And I let that be enough for now. Then came the picture. I was in the locker room between cases when my phone buzzed. A message from Adrian. It was her. In his shop. In a vintage off-white dress. Smiling. Like something had settled exactly where it belonged. His caption read, "Screams gallery bride, right?" She replied, "Just that. 3 flames. Not, that's not appropriate. Not, we're just trying things. Not delete. That. Just heat." My hands went. Still, the room hummed. The overhead light felt too bright and too far away. That night, I suggested we keep the wedding small. Maybe skip the winery. Maybe stay close. Intimate. Grounded. She blinked like I'd spoken in a language she'd forgotten she once knew. What? But Adrian's already checking July 15th. You said June felt rushed. I hadn't said that. Not exactly. But she believed I had or needed me to have, so I nodded. Yeah. I said, sure, July's fine. And that was the moment I realized the ground had already shifted. The wedding wasn't ours anymore. It belonged to the world she'd stepped into, the one my brother had opened, the door to, and she had walked in without once looking back to see if I was still following. The drive to the hospital felt unreal, like Simon had somehow stepped outside of his own life and was watching it play out from above. Streetlights streaked across the windshield, blurring into smear-like ghosts. The wipers beat slowly, though it wasn't raining. Everything felt out of rhythm. In the passenger seat, his wife, Clara, sat curled into herself. One hand covered her mouth, the other gripping the edge of the seat so tightly her knuckles looked strained. "Bone white. Do you think it's really her?" she whispered, voice cracking on the last word. Simon didn't answer at first. He couldn't, because to answer meant deciding between logic and faith. Logic said his daughter had died. They buried her. They had touched her cold hand one last time in the funeral home. Faith whispered, "Something is happening. Something not yet understood. We'll know soon," Simon finally murmured. His voice didn't sound like his own. It sounded older, weathered, like it had been dragged across gravel. They reached the hospital. Bright, indifferent fluorescent lights washed the lobby walls, making everything look too clean, too empty. A nurse recognized them instantly. "You're Simon and Clara Hart?" she asked softly. Simon nodded. He almost didn't trust his legs to carry him. Clara nearly stumbled, and he caught her elbow, anchoring her. They were led down a quiet corridor, one of those hallways where air stands still, where time feels suspended. At the end was a single door with a plastic name card that read patient, unknown, female found. Unresponsive status, stable. Disoriented, Clara's breathing hitched. The nurse placed her hand on the handle. "She keeps asking for you." The word struck Simon right in the sternum. His vision tunneled. The door opened, and there, sitting upright in the bed, wrapped in a hospital blanket, hair tangled, cheeks pale but very much alive, was a woman who looked like her, not exactly the same. Not frozen at 6 years old. This was a young woman of 37, but the shape of her face, the deep-set brown eyes, a tiny scar near her left eyebrow, from when she fell off a swing in their backyard at age 5. Clara choked on a sob. Simon stepped forward, but slowly, like his body was moving through deep water. The woman looked up, her eyes widened, and, in a voice that was cracked, fragile, trembling, the same tone she had used as a child, when she scraped her knee and came running to him, she whispered, "Dad." The world inside Simon broke open. He staggered. Clara fell into tears. Time stopped. Everything they believed, everything they had mourned, everything that defined their family for 31 years, suddenly meant nothing. Their daughter was alive and sitting right in front of them. Simon didn't realize he was holding his breath until his chest began to ache. He took one slow step forward, then another. Clara reached the bed first. Her hands shook as she touched their daughter's face, as if afraid that one blink would cause the entire moment to collapse into hallucination. "Lily," she breathed. The name came out like prayer. The woman nodded, not confidently, not entirely believing herself either. "I didn't think you'd still remember that name," she whispered. Simon's throat tightened. How are you here?" "We buried—" His voice fractured. He couldn't finish. She looked down, twisting the edge of the blanket in her fists. "I know." The room filled with a silence, so heavy it felt alive. A doctor entered quietly, a woman in her late 50s, eyes soft with the weight of someone who had seen too many impossible things. "We haven't been able to get full clarity from her yet," the doctor said gently. "She's confused, disoriented, but physically, she's stable." Clara wiped tears from her cheeks, nodding. Simon sat on the edge of the bed. He kept a few inches of distance, not because he didn't want to touch her, but because he feared touch would break the spell. His hands trembled. In his lap, "Tell us," he said softly. "Whatever you remember." Lily's eyes glistened. "It wasn't a funeral," she began. Clara stiffened. Simon leaned in, breath caught. "I remember being in the car. The road was wet. We spun. Everything hurt. Then, darkness." Her fingers curled, pressing into her palms. "When I woke up, I wasn't in a hospital. I was somewhere, I don't know, somewhere cold, underground. A facility, maybe. There were people, doctors, or something like doctors. They said I was in a coma. They said they were studying brain trauma recovery. They said you knew." Simon's blood ran ice cold. "We never knew anything." Clara whispered sharply, "We never received any—" Lily shook her head. "I don't know if they lied, or if someone paid them, or if it was something else entirely. I just know I was kept there. For years. My body grew, but time didn't feel real. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. I was awake inside my own head, watching my own life. My memories were all I had." Simon's breath shuddered. 31 years. Their daughter had been alive, trapped, silent, hidden. Then, 2 weeks ago, she continued, voice trembling. There was chaos, alarms, people shouting. I heard footsteps, doors slamming. Something went wrong. Someone let me out or everyone ran. I don't know, I just walked until someone found me on the road. She looked at them, eyes wet, shining and broken and hopeful all at once. I came home, she whispered, or I tried. Clara covered her mouth again, sobbing into her fingers. Simon reached slowly toward Lily's hand. This time, he didn't hesitate. Their fingers touched, warm, real, alive. Lily broke, shoulders shaking, breath breaking. I thought you gave me up, she cried. I thought you moved on. Simon's voice was barely more than a rasp. We never stopped. Loving you. He didn't realize he was crying until a tear slid off his jaw and landed on their joined hands. The doctor cleared her throat gently, as if she had been waiting for the right moment to say something that weighed on her. Conscience, there's one more thing, she said quietly. Simon looked up, still holding Lily's hand like it was the last thread between sanity and collapse. What? He asked. The doctor hesitated. She didn't look unsure. She looked afraid. We found something in her intake records, documents that were tucked into her clothing when she was brought in. Someone wanted us to find them. Someone wanted you to know. She handed Simon a file. Thin, too. Thin to hold 31 years. Simon opened it. The first page was a scanned form. A medical transfer sheet. Date, 31 years ago. Location redacted, condition. Persistent coma. Family notification. Waved. Clara's breath stopped in her throat. No, she whispered. No one could have waived it except... Simon read the signature. Line. His heart didn't just drop. It collapsed. Signed Harold Carter. MD primary physician. Godfather. Family. Friend, the man who sat beside him at the funeral. The man who cried with them. The man who carried Lily's tiny white coffin down the aisle. The betrayal was not loud. It was quiet. Like poison. Clara shook her head violently, as if refusing reality might make it untrue. He was with us every day, she whispered. He stayed at our house. He prayed with us. He said there was no saving her. Simon felt something inside him split, not emotionally, physically, as if the bones inside his chest had cracked. The doctor continued softly. We contacted him, per standard next of kin and guardian of record procedure. That's why you received the call at 3 a.m. The system notified the listed contact first. Clara looked like she might faint. Is he coming here? She managed to ask. The doctor's eyes flicked to the window, to the hallway, to the shadows beyond the door. He already arrived 20 minutes ago, she said, and when we told him she was awake, he left quickly. Simon stood up, not fast, not dramatic, just deliberate, heavy, as if every step was fueled by something ancient and primal. Lily's fingers tightened around his. Dad, she whispered, voice quivering. He said I belonged to them. He said I was part of something. I didn't understand. I didn't want to understand. Simon leaned down and looked into her eyes, the same eyes that stared up at him when she was 6, asking for help reaching the top shelf. The same eyes that stared from framed photos on the mantel for decades, frozen in time. You belong to us, he said, voice solid, steady, unmoving. You always did. Lily broke into silent tears. Clara wrapped her arms around them, both, and for the first time in 31 years. The family was whole, but peace did not come, because now they knew. Someone took her, someone kept her alive. Someone tried to erase her from their lives, and that someone was a man they trusted like blood. The house felt colder when they returned, not the chill of winter, but the kind that settles into the walls when a truth too big has entered a room. Simon didn't speak much on the drive home. Lily slept in the back seat, exhausted from crying, from remembering, from surviving. Clara sat beside her, running fingers gently through her hair, afraid that if she stopped, Lily might disappear again. But Simon's mind was somewhere else, on the signature, on the lie, on the man who once stood beside him as a brother. Harold Carter, he had known him since they were teenagers, best friends, best man at Simon's wedding, called Uncle Harry by Lily. Before she could pronounce the words correctly, there had never been a warning, no argument, no falling out, nothing to explain. Betrayal on this scale. When they got home, Lily went to rest in the guest room. Clara stayed with her. Simon went to the study. He didn't pace. He didn't shake. He didn't break. He sat down, pulled out his phone, and dialed the number he knew by heart. The phone rang twice. Harold answered. Simon, he said, as if nothing were wrong, as if 31 years were nothing but dust. You knew, Simon said. His voice was flat, emotionless, empty. Harold exhaled slowly. I knew you'd find out. Eventually. Why? Simon asked. 2 letters, 1. Question, the end of a word. Harold's tone didn't tremble. There were research groups studying neuroplasticity and coma state cognition. She was a perfect case. Young brain, high recovery potential. They promised to save her, to wake her. A pause. And they did. That doesn't justify it, Simon said. Quiet, direct. No, Harold replied. It doesn't. Silence. Tightened across the line. You buried an empty coffin. Harold continued. I stayed by your side because I felt obligated to. I mourned with you because I was terrified of losing you. I convinced myself it was for the greater good. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't, but I believed she had a chance there that she didn't have here. Simon didn't speak. He didn't yell. He didn't demand. He simply breathed. Harold's voice softened. She lived. Simon. She lived because of that. Choice. Simon closed his eyes. She suffered. He whispered. For 31 years. Harold didn't respond because there was no defense for that. Simon's voice changed. Then low, steady, final. I don't care if you thought you were saving her. You stole her life. You stole ours. You do not come near this family again, ever. The connection broke, not with anger, not with shouting, just a quiet click, the sound of a door closing forever. Later, after the house had gone still, Simon stood in the doorway of Lily's room. She was asleep. Clara curled beside her, holding her the way a mother would hold a newborn, as if the world might try to take her. Back. Simon stepped inside, sat on the floor beside the bed, his hand resting on the edge of the mattress. Not touching, just close, enough to feel her warmth, close, enough to know she was real. The clock ticked. Night deepened. Nothing was certain about tomorrow, therapy, legal battles, news, questions, pain. But they would face it together, and Simon understood something he hadn't in 31 years. Grief doesn't end when a person dies. It ends when they come home. He lowered his forehead to the mattress and breathed her in, quietly, steadily, like someone who had finally come up from underwater. Welcome home, Lily, he whispered. The words hung in the dark like a vow she was alive, and she was his again at last.